Hey guys, new video here. New episode, Is It Worth? Rampage. I wanted to talk about Rampage a little bit, a quick video, because every stream there's a few people that comment and they ask, what is the number that shows up in the top left corner of the screen that ticks up? It's like a kill counter. You know, what is that thing? Is that an overlay? You know, is that an add-on? And it's not. It's actually part of the game. It's called Rampage. So Rampage was, if you haven't been playing the game like a really long time, it was actually one of the older leagues, and this was back when leagues actually didn't like have that much content. You know, like Onslaught. You know how you can get Onslaught from a flask? That was like an entire league, right? Just like Onslaught on its own. And Rampage was kind of like that, but a little bit cooler. So it is a stacking effect for when you get a kill threshold. You get all kinds of buffs. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I think that Rampage is something that not enough people like consider. Like they might know that it's in the game, they might have like some feeling of what it is, but they don't really know like, is it worth putting in my build? Is it worth considering like maybe taking a unique, like budgeting uniques in my build and taking one of those, whether the belt, whether the offhand, whether the gloves especially, to get the Rampage. And overall, I'll just like, if you don't want to watch the whole video, yes, it is insanely worth it. And I think for any kind of mapping build, you have to have it. I'll explain why later in the video. So because I feel like any new player that kind of walks through the numbers and the effects will realize how strong it is. You know, I think it's worth making a video on. So let's just jump right in, okay? So Rampage, what it does is when you get the kill counter, right? How it's going to work is that for every 20 stacks of Rampage, which means the number in the top left corner when you're killing monsters, right? Number of monsters killed. Every 20 stacks, you're going to get, what is it, a 1% movement speed bonus and a 2% damage bonus, right? It doesn't seem like much. It's like, huh, I got to maintain that. And basically, you have 5 seconds. So you have 5 seconds in between kills. If you don't kill an enemy for 5 seconds, the Rampage counter will drop off and you'll go back to 0, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'll explain why later as well. And then so you have to regain the Rampage, you get all the bonuses. And what are the bonuses? So basically, I can pull up a little thing here, and so this is a Rampage from the PoE wiki, and basically these are the kill thresholds. So once you get like 15 kills, and once you kill one enemy, the counter is ticking, okay? So like you kill an enemy and then it's counting until you kill 15 enemies, right, consecutively. And so you get a Nova. Now all of these are pretty cool. I don't need to go into each one. The ones to know are going to be basically the explosions, the detonate deads that will clear the packs by killing the already dead monsters. The one that stun spears in a Nova that chain. These things are, you know, stunning monsters, but you'll probably kill the monsters anyways. There's just really cool effects that you'll notice. You'll really notice the cyclones that will show up on the map from the animated weapons and things like that. And all these are really nice, but as you can see, they are very like fluid, very expected bonuses. So like right here, in between killing 100 monsters, right, which is like maybe like 2 or 3 packs of monsters sometimes, you're getting 5 of these Rampage bonuses. And then down here, you know, it goes all the way up to 520. So there are 13 different Rampage tiers, and so it happens very frequently. Now, why is this so good? Now, let's first talk about by the numbers if you're more like a math person, right? So let's say you're running a really good tier map, and a good tier map essentially has maybe let's just say 1,500 monsters in it, okay? 1,500 monsters. If you have a complete ass map, maybe 1,200 monsters, but I'm going to use 1,500 monsters because in my experience, that's like, if you're running any kind of like, you know, juiced map strategy, you're going to have a lot of monsters in your map. And so let's take how the Rampage stacks up to 1,000. Right? If the Rampage stacks up to 1,000, then let's just be conservative and say that our average is 500, right? It might be a little bit higher than that because you'll have 1,000 for the last third of the map, right? But essentially, if you can average 500, you know, a 500 stack of Rampage in the map, then what you're looking at is you're going to be looking at a 25% movement speed bonus, right? 25% movement speed, it's insane. That's like a decent pair of boots. It's half a Queen of the Forest at that point, and you'll really feel the speed of your character. Now, what about the damage bonus? Well, The damage was, I believe it will be 50% if you are average of 500 stacks. So 50% damage, how can we compare that? Because sometimes 50% doesn't mean anything, right? You're like 50%, what does that mean? It's like 4 skill points, it's like 4 or 5 skill points. But let me put it to you this way. You know how some, the helmet enchants right now are very unbalanced. You know, some helmet enchants have like a ridiculous modifier, like +2 tornado shot, molten strike projectiles, volatile dead, detonates additional corpses, like real more multipliers kind of. Well, think about how many of the skills, even some good skills that have the best modifier on the helmet, the enchant, is 40% increased damage, right? So for example, I use maybe 40% increased blight damage. You know, if you're a righteous fire build, 40% increased righteous fire build. Think about how much value that adds to a helmet, and how people seek out those enchants, you know, quite often because of that boost. And if you have 500 stacks on average in the map, you basically have 1 1/4 of a helmet enchant for free, right? It's insane, right? Just think about it that way. And then not only that, it actually doubles, because like I said, if you're a fast mapping build, you're gonna be cruising through that map, you're gonna hit that 1000 stack, especially if you're running like any kind of breaches in there, you know, harbingers, abysses, strong boxes, add a lot of monsters. So stacking up to 1000 is actually a lot easier than you might think, and you can actually maintain that. Once again, you have 5 seconds in between consecutive kills. It works for party play too, so if your party member kills something, it'll work as well. And so it's sometimes it'll drop off because you have to pick up items, you gotta like wait for something, whatever, right? And if you leave the map, come back in the map, you'll lose it if you zone. However, I think the thing to note here is that if you get 1000 stacks of the Rampage, once again very easy to do, you're gonna have doubled those, right, essentially, and it caps at 1000. So you're looking at 50% move speed, and then you're also looking at 100% increased damage, right? 100% increased damage multiplier. So basically you're looking at like, you know, 5 to 10, you know, hold on. You're looking at like maybe like 8 to 10 skill points, right, on the tree, just for the damage. And then move speed, like let's think about the skill tree for a second. So if you're looking for move speed, you can go things like quick step, right? This is 2 points for 6% move speed. If you're some kind of bow build, you're probably near point blank, you're probably over here and primeval force, and that means you can get celerity. Well, celerity is 3 points for 3, 6, and 9. 3 points for 9% move speed, whereas Rampage, you can get up to 50% move speed for free, right? And so that is a massive amount of points, maybe like, you know, 15 to 17 points on the tree. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Now let's take an item like Queen of the Forest, okay? So Queen of the Forest has gone through some pretty, you know, not so good changes. Before it was uncapped, you could get unlimited move speed pretty much based on your evasion, and then they nerfed it down to you could get 75% movement speed if you had the maximum 45,000 evasion. Nowadays it's kind of nerfed again, so this is actually 50% movement speed if you have the 45,000 evasion. And you know why people use Queen of the Forest? Because that extra 50% boost to your move speed, you know, gets you off the starting block, off the beginning of the map faster. When you have your all your buffs stacked up, it feels very smooth, it feels good to play. People like movement speed, and there's a whole host of builds that are built on movement speed. So the Queen of the Forest itself is notable because you think about your other options, right? So there are so many crazy chests in the game these days. You know, you have like you have that like red, what was that, like the red scale chest, impulsas. You have impulsas. You know, even things like chavronis, red chavronis, where you go like low life and you get the bonuses there. Like there's a lot of chests that people can go combs and stuff. There's so many chests that you can choose from that give you massive bonuses, and such an iconic slot, right? And you have to realize that people choose Queen of the Forest, like obviously has some life and resist, but if it didn't have that move speed on it, it would just be a rare chest that no one would use. And so that movement speed is a huge, unique budgeting like thought process for people in their builds. Do I use Queen or do I not? And so now, if you just use Rampage, you get a free current version Queen of the Forest at 1000 monster kills, right? And so when you think about it, you're like, oh my god, I get a free. So like, let's say you're using impulsas and you could stack your kills really fast. You basically have a free Queen of the Forest movement speed as long as you're a fast mapping build, right? This is talking about Rampage in terms of mapping, which is the only case, right? Maybe delving, because delving spawns a lot and it's a very consecutive stream of monsters in all the content. It's not for bossing, because bossing, you know, you could get some monsters here and there, but essentially if you're a good boss, you're not in that fight very long, right? So this is a mapping discussion. Now, with that said, how can you get the Rampage? Well, there's actually a lot of ways, but the 3 ways I want to talk to pretty briefly is these 3 gloves here. So Shadows and Dust, Flesh and Spirit, and then Null and Void. Now these are very interesting because they all have a Rampage explicit on them. What that means is just imagine the Rampage League is on you. Any map you go into, you will start getting those stacks. And so if you are a crit build, basically you're pretty much going to be locked into Shadows and Dust. It's amazing because it has this goes up to 30-30, so 30% increased crit, 30% increased multiplier, and then you get a smoke cloud on Rampage. Now, these gloves, once again, if you're crit based, are amazing, but the smoke cloud is also notable because if you're ever like standing still casting during a breach encounter, during a maybe during an abyss, maybe a harbinger, that smoke cloud blinds enemies, and blinded enemies will pretty much just not hit you, especially if you're evasion based. They're just not gonna, if you have phase accurate, like there's no chance in how they're hitting you. If they hit you once, they're not gonna hit you again for like like 20 attacks or something, right? So maybe even more. So so the smoke cloud is also of note on these gloves. If you're moving faster and you're not doing that kind of those kinds of league mechanics, it might not be that great, but this is just a fantastic pair of gloves for crit builds. Okay, the next one is the Flesh and Spirit. Now Flesh and Spirit is probably the least used of these, and the reason being it's just like it gives Rampage, but these days most builds are crit based, and so the recovery of the life when you have Leech is really not that great. The one thing is like when I'm playing like Blight, right? It's like in my Blight build, this is actually great because there's not a loss where you can't leech off of a dot build, so like this is pretty good. And also the granting the additional whale skill soul if you've Rampage recently is pretty good because you essentially, if you've Rampage recently for 4 seconds, you're doubling your soul prevention, and if you're playing a build that's primarily using the souls to power them up, like the Stormcaller, the Blighter, then you will recharge faster, and then you can actually, like you can think, for example, if you only need 6 souls to gain a stack and you have 5 stacks, then going from like 1 to 5 stacks is actually so much easier with this when this Rampage recently happens. Okay, so that's one little niche case that you can think about using these gloves. Now these I think don't get talked about enough. I think a lot of people forget that these exist. Null and Void has a natural like life roll on it, and so the strength is also life, right? Because it's converted to life, and these are pretty amazing because not only do you get the life, which everyone wants, you also remove elements on Rampage, which is pretty often, so like sometimes it might save you, but the big one is the immunity to physical damage. So an immortal call, right, for 1.5 seconds on Rampage, and you get it 13 times between 1 and 520 kills. You use a Solstice Vigil, this gets extended to about 2.2 seconds, and so imagine a 2.2 second immunity to phys damage every, well, 13 times between 1 and 520 kills. It's insane. So these 3 gloves are like yours to pick from. Now usually, once again, crit build is this one. This one is for probably dot builds or sources that cannot get while you're mapping, cannot very easily get leech or easy regen, life regen, things like that. And then these are just basically all around like very versatile gloves that you can think about using, right? So so these 3 gloves, if you're gonna use them, right, they do take up your glove slots. So like if you're using this league, there's some very nice crafted gloves for certain leagues. For certain builds. So if you're looking for a rare, like let's say you play Winter's Orb, right, and you want to put the pseudo 6-link in your gloves, you can't use these. And there's like other things for attack builds. There's some very nice like conversion and things like that. So you might lose out on that, but there are other options. So I'm going to bring up this page again here, and let's talk about these things here. Bisco's Leech. Now Bisco's Leech, I would say for anyone that does not have a Headhunter, this belt is actually crazy. It gives you 5% quantity, and you have to remember this is multiplicative with the map quantity. Okay, 1 massive resist, and then I guess this is life. Strength is essentially life a tiny bit, so it doesn't hurt. And then rarity, people like kind of poop on rarity all the time, but rarity, it helps you get those rings faster. It helps you make your lore weave faster, which earns you more money. And then you can think about it as like think about every time you dropped a tier 1 unique, you should now drop that many more of that tier 1 unique over the X amount of time. So this belt giving Rampage is probably, I would say, if you don't want to hassle with the gloves, you never used the gloves before, this is a very safe bet. And the point of this recording, it is 30C, right? Some of these other gloves, if you're gonna find these gloves, they're actually like way less. They can be like 1 ouch to me, 1C, something like that. Okay, worm side, nobody uses these. Okay, you could, I guess, for whatever reason, but I'm pretty sure like nobody uses these. I haven't seen these being used in a long time. I've been looking through a lot of builds on PoE Ninja. Same with Null Void. Okay, so let's talk about these two right here. Now these two, I very rarely see anybody using this axe, okay? But if you are going to use either a Dancing Dervish or a Sinvictus, it goes in your offhand. So basically how it works is, I'll just show you. Well, I can't really show you, I don't have one, but when you swap to your offhand, let's say I go into a map, right? Let's say I go into this Moon Temple right here. Let me just zone in, and I'm ready to kill monsters as soon as they're already cleared. But what you would do is at the beginning of the map, you would weapon swap to where your Sinvictus or where your Dancing Dervish is. You need to kill one monster, and then you weapon swap back. Right? My hotkey is X. You can put your weapon swap to whatever you want, and then right when you swap back, you know the ticker is going. As long as you killed one monster, you do not need to have the Dancing Duo, Dancing Dervish, the Sinvictus equipped. Right? It can be in your offhand, and you will maintain the Rampage. Obviously, if you lose Rampage, if you zone, you'll have to swap back, kill a monster, and then swap back. Now, one big important thing about this is, let me just show you what I'm using here. So on this build right here, one second. So look at my auras, right? I have Clarity, Grace, and then some Blasphemy, and then the what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. It's called well, Aspect of Spoder. Okay. If you are going to do a Rampage weapon swap, make sure, if you can, that you do not have any auras in your weapons. And the reason for that is because, see, for me, I don't do a weapon swap. I use these gloves, and so when I weapon swap, I lose my clarity. You see, if I weapon swap, I've lost the clarity, and when I weapon swap back after I got, like, say, the Rampage, I have to cast this again. That eats into your 5-second timer for the Rampage. So really try to not have any auras in the weapons. And this is like just a kind of an all-around rule, because if you don't have auras in your weapons, let's say you're leveling Enlightens and you're like, hey, what percentage XP are my Enlightens and powers? And you mouse over them, right? And when you're checking it, you have to go back, and you might lose your auras. So try, if you can, not to have auras in your weapons, especially if you're doing this Rampage trick, okay? Because it's going to eat up a lot of time, and it's kind of clunky. So that's one thing I'll say there. So beyond having these two, another thing to note is that Dancing Dervish is dex based. So if you're gonna do Rampage and you want to level like skill gem, let's say like a Blade Vortex, you want to level Elemental Hit. These are green gems. It's gonna be a lot easier for you to get the colors on a dex based Dancing Dervish, right? Because like 6-socket green gems, easy. Now if you're gonna level in Power, which is right now I think like 3 exalts or something like that, then you're much better off using this, the Sinvictus, because if you look at this, it's mostly a strength based, but also a dex based. So you can kind of alternate like skill gems and powers, things like that. All right, that's one little thing to think about. Think about the colors that you want to use on your offhands when you're going to do this Rampage weapon swap. Okay. And so that's really all there is to talk about there. I think that the Rampage is powerful to the point that any mapping build kind of needs Rampage. If you're mapping and mapping is more than like half the content you do, delving is more than half the content you do, you have to use Rampage. It's so good, and it's so good. And not only is it good, it's just fun. It's just fun seeing the effects on the ground. Now, if you're going to use these, another added bonus is that Shadows and Dust, the Flesh and Spirit, and the Null and Void, if you search on PoE Trade for like the just uncorrupted clean version, not only are they cheap, you can get any corruption you really want, right? So what good corruptions are on these? Because they're a unique item and easy to corrupt, you can actually like try to corrupt your own. You can look at PoEDB, see the percentages for each corruption, and then like buy that many and try to get your own, right? If you can't find something you want. So Usually on these, it's very powerful to get like a curse on hit setup, especially if you have a +1 curse, or if you have like a Whispers of Doom right here, right, where you can apply another one, or you're an occultist or something like that. So the best corruptions, if you're gonna go for it, or gonna buy one, and you should always search for a good corruption on these because they're so plentiful, because like so many people are corrupting them themselves. The cheapest ones will be like that are good, and remember, these corruptions are free bonuses, right? So the cheapest ones are going to be probably like percent increase maximum life, percent increase maximum ES if you're an ES based build. You can get attack crit, right? Attack base crit up to 0.8, I think. Spell base crit up to 0.8, I believe. What else can you get? You can get like all the curses, so vulnerability, temp chains, enfeeble. I think you can get despair nowadays, right? Like temp chains. All these curses, LE weakness is probably the most expensive one, and these you can get corrupted on there. You can also get +1 frenzy charges on these, right? For all the curses, level 12 is the max, so don't search higher than that. And +1 frenzy, right? So going from 3 to 4 frenzy charges, you get additional 4% more damage. You get 4% increased attack and cast speed. Very good corruptions. And so definitely when if you want to try these, try to search for one that has a corruption that is good for your build, because it will be easy to find. And yeah, I really hope you guys test it out, because playing with Rampage and without Rampage is now a world of difference, especially because we're in the kind of league where monster spawns are plentiful. The maps are the good maps have insane monster density. There's all kinds of ways to add more monsters to your map, and that really plays to the strength of Rampage. So I hope you guys try it out. That's the video, and if you have questions, you can ask me later. Okay, bye everyone, bye.